So go ahead and go down to the bottom here, in-class worksheets. We'll open up the same sheet we had yesterday, worksheet 2.2. There's a couple things that I kind of glossed over because I was in a hurry, so I just want to finish those up. One of those is the stem and leaf plot. So you can see those here. Here, let me stop sharing for a second. So the stem and leaf plot is kind of weird in the fact that, let me slide this over and I can see that at the same time. So you can think of it, sometimes it's called a stem plot or a stem and leaf plot. You can think of that as kind of a text histogram. Okay, so this is the kind of thing, especially before computers, they used to do, but nobody does them anymore. But anyway, we'll just show them to you. So this is probably more of a paper question. I guess I could show you how to do it on a computer, but the idea here is you have a stem and a leaf. So as we look at our data here, it goes from 15 to 32, it looks like. Okay. So what you do is you create a stem, 1, 2, 3, or 10s, 20s, and 30s. Then you're going to put a line here. Now, in the book, I think they ask you to sort them. I don't care. You don't have to sort them. So I'm just going to go through here. So we've got 24, 15, 26, 24, 26, 26, 30, 31, 31, 25, 23, 22, 31, and 32. Okay? So you can think of that as kind of a histogram on its side. Turn your head like this. You can kind of see, well, that's kind of a histogram, right? Now, if we were to talk about skew, let's review skew again. What do you think? This would be right skewed, left skewed, not skewed? I'm going to pick on, tell me your name.
Savannah.
Savannah, what do you think?
Left skewed.
Okay, so when you're looking at this, well, let's ask it this way. What is that?
That's right.
That would be right skewed. And this would be left skewed. Okay, so if I turn my head like this, you're always going from low to high. This tail's bigger, right? So that would be right skewed. Okay, so that would be an example of right skewed. Okay, so just as a reminder, what is this? Uniform. We'd call that uniform. What is this? Bimodal. What is this? Bell-shaped or symmetric. We always hope that our data looks like the bell curve, but it often does not. Hopefully it does, though. Bell curve is our favorite shape. All right. So the one thing that I wanted to talk a little bit about was line graphs. Oh, actually, before I do that, line graphs are used for what I call time data. Okay? All right, so let's go back to, can you see that? Ooh, yeah, you can. All right, let's go back to the spreadsheet for a moment. I'm going to open up a new tab here. And let's say that I wanted to track milk prices. Okay, so here's what's pretty cool. If I had January 2017 and February 2017, now here's what's pretty cool about this. When it actually is a date that I want, if you highlight those first two and then you put it right on the corner here, you can drag down and it will count all of the months for you, which I think is pretty doggone cool. Okay? Now, let's say that I have the price. So this is date. And these are milk prices last year. Okay, so I'm just going to make these up. 205, 210, 215, 222, 233, 237, 245, 238, 236, 222, 220, whatever, 220, 215, 210. Okay? All right. So, I'm going to try to pick on people I don't know your name. Tell me your name, third row.
Devin?
Devin, do you think you could help me figure out how to make a line graph?
Yep, so you'll just highlight your information,
Highlight your information.
then you will go to insert,
Insert.
then you'll just select the bar graph.
No, we don't want to do a bar graph because this is time data.
Just like line graph.
Line graph. So this one right here. Okay. In my last class, somebody mentioned recommended charts. Sometimes you can. This is a little quicker and hopefully won't throw you off. Okay. Now, what else do I need to do to make this a good graph? Add labels. How do I do that? We can click on the green plus sign here. Axis titles. What should I put over here? Price. And we can put dollars, in case anybody was wondering. Down here. What do you think? Date. Now this is interesting to me. Okay. And up here, what do we want to put up here?
Milk price over time.
Milk price. I always keep putting an E in the end of that. Milk price over time. Now, well, I got a few questions. First of all, is this a good graph? I'm going to say no. Why am I saying no?
You have too much space at the bottom.
I have too much space at the bottom?
Yeah, so like you have 1.8, you need to decrease your range.
Oh, so you're saying, so you want to change the range? What do you want to change it to?
I'll probably start at 2.
You change it to 2? She wants to emphasize those price changes. Okay? I would actually say that actually distorts your graph.
Really?
Yeah. Okay? I would rather, because notice we got a sharp peak there. Now it looks a lot flatter, right? Okay? So, yeah, I would probably do that because that kind of flattens it out now. Okay? If you want to distort it like that, in fact, that brings up another thing. Let me just mention this. True story, Jason Chaffetz abortion graph. You guys remember when Jason Chaffetz was our congressman from Utah? He actually used this graph right here in a congressional hearing against Planned Parenthood. Is this a good graph or a bad graph?
Incredibly bad.
Incredibly bad graph. Why?
Purple line is above the red at the start when the number is smaller.
Yeah. Did you all know that 327,000 is a lot bigger than 935,000? Who knew that? Okay, that's called congressional math. It sucks. Okay. Notice over here, there's no scale here. 2 million is greater than 289,000, so I got that part right. So if he had actually not distorted this graph, this is what it would have looked like. Okay? Why do you think he did that first graph?
Because we wanted to make it look like
Planned Parenthood was evil.
He wanted to make it look like Planned Parenthood was evil. But gosh, abortions are going up and cancer screenings are going down. Okay?
It's almost like they're getting less funding.
Yeah, let's imagine that. So let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, so this is what it really should have looked like. Okay? Now, the interesting thing, if you actually watch the video, okay, if you actually watch the video, Cecily, I think her name is Cecily Richards from Texas. She says, oh, I noticed here, it says Americans United for Life. Anybody ever heard of that group? What is it?
It's a pro-life group.
Pro-life, anti-abortion, right? Do you think they would have any incentive to distort a graph? What do you think? Okay, so check your source. That can be the first thing. Now, the other question is, let's talk about this for a minute, because this is actually a non-distorted graph, okay? So abortions look relatively flat. Notice we start at the zero as we should, okay? Abortions are relatively flat. Yeah, they've gone up a little bit, but cancer screenings have gone in half, right? More than in half. Why? Is it the fact that Planned Parenthood likes to do abortions and they don't like to do cancer screenings? Is that the reason? That's what he was trying to imply, right? Why are cancer screenings going down? This guy is too, he needs answering all the questions. Let me throw that out for anybody else, but if nobody else, I'll go back to him. Anybody have any ideas?
Now you've given them an out.
Okay, so why is that, Cooper?
There's a few reasons. First of all, Planned Parenthood's getting a lot less funding. Second of all, a lot less people are going to them because the media is vilifying them. Third, there was another reason that I can't think of.
There's a really good reason, actually. And I would minimize the two reasons you listed there. So vilifying Planned Parenthood, that may or may not have happened. You got something?
Is it because a younger population gets Planned Parenthood, so they need less cancer screening?
No, it's not because of the age of the population.
Oh, it's, I think part of the reason is because a big cancer that they screen for is cervical cancer, which is caused by the HPV virus, which we have a vaccine for.
That's a good idea, but no. There is a vaccine for HPV virus, which is great. But it kills me, the people that are like, no, I don't, if my kid's sleeping around, I want them to get the HPV virus. What? Are you crazy? But anyways, the reason why cancer screenings have gone down, okay? One of the big cancer screenings for women is breast cancer. You're supposed to feel your breast and see if you see any lumps, okay? You find a lump, what do? They cut off your breast because just in case, right? So here's the problem. We have a lot of maimed women who have their breasts cut off unnecessarily. The American Cancer Society has actually said, yeah, quit doing that. Unless you have a history of breast cancer in your family, don't go feeling around for lumps because we're probably going to get a false positive and we're going to maim you. So Planned Parenthood was actually following the guidelines from the American Cancer Society. And so that's why their screenings cut more than in half, because they're not doing as many. So that's the significant reason why. Okay, it was an actual medical reason to do that. Do you think Jason Chaffetz was interested in that? Okay. All right. So make sure, don't distort your graphs. Start them at zero. Generally speaking, make sure it has a scale, unlike Jason Chaffetz. Okay. And check the source. There could be a reason why that graph's purposely distorted. Okay. Also, another way to make bad graphs are what we call pictographs. Okay. This one's one of my favorites here. Isn't that cute? Okay. This one's even better here. We got apples, bananas, and cherries. Notice they're all four, but the apples are way bigger than the cherries, so it looks much longer, right? So that's a great way to distort your graphs. So don't ever do that. Luckily, Excel doesn't do that. Some of the worst graphs you will ever see are from USA Today, but they are artistic, I'll grant that. But this is one of my favorites here. We've got a cast, right? Okay, don't do that.
I don't know, I really like it.
It is artistic, I'll grant that. Yeah, so I'm trying to remember. They've got some funny ones with like, oh, that one's okay there, I guess. I remember seeing one that had a toilet paper roll. How much toilet paper do people use in America? It was goofy. So anyway, no pictographs, no 3D graphs. I think I mentioned that last time. Don't distort your graphs. I think, gosh, I'm going a little fast today. Yesterday I was got done a little early. So what I would like to do, let me ask a quick question. Actually, let me back up for a second. I forgot to ask this question. How would you describe this graph here? I asked you to describe it on a test. Symmetric?
Slightly less.
Did you call it skewed? Don't call it skewed. Okay? All of these things here that I've written on the board, they only apply. These apply only to histograms. Okay? So don't call your line graph skewed. I think they do talk about an ogive in there. Nobody talks about ogive. An ogive is basically a line graph for a histogram. We'll never use that. But line graphs should typically be used for this. So how I would describe this, and I'm going to distort it just to make it a little bit easier to read, or maybe, there we go, reset that, okay? So you do your graph here. This is a little bit easier. So you can see a general increasing trend until about July, and then a decreasing trend. Because you're talking about the trend, okay? So it would be, I mean, you could maybe call that slightly left skewed or symmetric, but I wouldn't because this is not a histogram. I would talk about the trend. Prices increasing from January to July, and then decreasing back to December, okay? Oh, another thing that I should do this. What if I were doing race times, okay? 1977, 1978, we're going to do this here for a bunch of years. 205, 201, 159, 157. You know what? I'm just going to put a, no, I don't want to do that. 158, 150, 149, 135, whatever. Okay. All right. So let me ask you this. First of all, what would be the best type of a graph to make out of these race times here? This is actually your time. This is the year. I think, Claire?
Could you do a bar?
Could you do a bar graph? What do you think?
Yeah.
What would be the better bar? So bar graphs are usually for what kind of data? Qualitative, right? Bar graphs are for qualitative data. Is this qualitative? No. So this is time data, right? So USA Today might do a bar graph, but you would never do such a thing, right? You don't work for them. So we should probably do a line graph, but here's what's going to be interesting. Watch what happens when I do my line graph. Oh, actually, you guys tell me how to do it. Let's pick on Jaylyn. How do you do a line graph? Highlight your data. Insert. Line graph. 2D line graph. What do you think of that graph? Is that what you were expecting, Jalen? No, what happened? What went wrong?
Your axis is at 0, and so you can't see it. So you have to skew it harder.
Oh,
My axis is at 0. Well, that's true. What, Hiram?
It's counting both years and times.
It's graphing the years. Did I want it to graph the years? No. How do I fix that? Apostrophe. Apostrophe is your friend, okay? So remember, on the test next week, when you get here and you call me over and you say, the graph's not doing what it's supposed to do, and I'll be like, gosh, I don't know, that's really weird. Okay? You got to know how to fix that, okay? Apostrophe is your friend. So here's the cool thing. I'm going to do the apostrophe on the first two. Notice that it's now left justified instead of right, and it's got that little green triangle there. I'm going to drag that down. Okay. Now when we do it, insert graph 2D. There it is. Now it's working the way I expected, right? How do I finish that, Jalen? I have the axis titles right there. This is the year. And this is what? Time. And we'll say this is the Boston Marathon. I don't know. I'm making it up. You'll have more information, or marathon, if you can't spell. Now, tell me your name.
McKenna.
McKenna, how would you describe that graph?
How to describe it? Oh, like it's skew or
Is it skewed?
no?
No? What is it? What is it showing to you?
People are getting faster.
People are getting faster, right? General downward trend in times. Okay? If it were a histogram, would it be skewed? It would be right skewed if it was a histogram, but it's not a histogram. Okay? All right. Gosh, we're doing really good on time. The one thing that I would like to make sure, let me ask a question here. How many people did not do their histograms on the computer last night? Okay. Ooh, half the class. Okay, are you going to be ready for my test that's timed next week? Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left here. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have a volunteer, somebody who feels rusty on histograms but wants to do really well on the test next week, that would like to come up and make a histogram out of this data that I have up here. Who would like to volunteer? Tell me your name. Sydney, come on up. Okay, so you guys are here to help Sydney figure out how to make this histogram. So how do you do such a thing?
We want these in one.
We want them in one column. How do you do that?
So I highlight that I want to move, and then I do Control X to
Control
cut,
X to cut it.
and Control V to paste.
Oh, she's very good. She remembers all those keystrokes.
And
You gonna
then-
remember that?
And
Okay.
then I'm going to highlight the whole column just by
Okay.
pressing the top, and then insert. And I want to do a bar graph, but then to make it a histogram, I want to go to quick layout and select where they're touching.
Okay. Now, she's just done one of the classic mistakes.
Oh,
I'm actually kind of glad because I'm going to see this type of a graph. What did she forget to do? She did everything good, but she forgot a very important step.
I forgot to categorize.
What was it, Hiram?
She forgot to order the data.
Yeah,
Okay, well, she could order the data. That would still be wrong.
category. Yeah,
She needs to
category.
group it. She needs to group it herself. You will see this exact I will see this exact mistake. Some of you You've now seen it, it's on video, don't make that mistake. I'm actually glad you made that mistake.
That's how we
Now you
learn.
know, don't do that. Okay?
So what's the best way to
Okay,
choose your groups?
So first of all, now technically you don't have to sort it, right? Now, did I mention yesterday there is a histogram maker on the computer?
Yeah.
And are you supposed to use it? No. Just for fun, let's use it anyway. I want to compare how the computer does it versus how you do it. So if you click on recommended charts, okay, this is wrong again. You can click on that and hit OK. Okay? Now, I don't like that chart, but it will make it. If you have way more dates, first of all, how many categories are there?
We want
4.
5
How
to
many are you supposed to
7.
have? At least 5. So that's one reason. That's reason number 1, don't use it. Okay? Leave it, just slide it out of the way.
Oh.
Slide it to the right. So we'll leave it there for comparison purposes. Okay? Now, you don't have to sort the data. It did it just fine, but it's often helpful to sort the data. Having said that, in the future, there will be times where if you sort the data, you will screw it up. Okay? So be judicious about sorting the data. But how do you sort this data?
We highlight it and then go to sort, and then we do smallest to largest to
Smallest to
start.
largest, that works. Perfect. Okay? All right, now we go from 10 down to what's at the bottom?
23.
10 to almost 24,
24.
right? Okay, so how many groups should you have?
5 to 7.
5 to 7. And so what should your groups be?
You just, can you just take the total number of data sets and divide them up equally, or is that going to be like a misrepresented graph? Like if you have 50 spots, can you say first 10, second 10, third 10, fourth 10, fifth 10? No, because that'd make it just one big straight line, wouldn't it?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, you don't want to do that.
That was bad.
That's called percentiles. We're going to talk about that. That's actually maybe tomorrow. No, I don't think we'll talk about it. But we'll talk about that soon. Okay? So what group should she use?
Well, if you have 10 to almost 24, it's about every 2.
About every 2? So a group of 10s and 11s. Now, before she types anything, what kind of data is this? This is a chapter 1 question. Quantitative, what else? Is it discrete?
Continuous.
No, it's continuous. Okay. Discrete is whole numbers, right? So should her groups be whole numbers? No. Okay. So what do you want your groups to be?
So you say it's not continuous, or you don't want whole numbers. So do you want to pick like your upper or your lower limit and your upper limit by these numbers?
No. But we go from roughly 10 to 24, right?
Right.
So if we went 10s and 11s, but it's not discrete, so I don't want to use 11, but we could go 10 to 11.99, right? 12 to 13.99. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. And the nice thing about that is when you go 10 to 11.99, Excel will not confuse that as a date, so you don't need to put an apostrophe there. But if you put 10-11 just for fun, see what that becomes October 11.
Oh.
Okay. All right. So she's
like
doing
that?
good. So keep
Okay.
going. Fill in as many as you need. So you get to the top. And by the way, Sydney knows a programming language called R. Do you like R better
I
than
kind
this?
of know it.
I
took an
in my
intro
last
class.
and he's like, "How do I just do this all in R?" And I'm like, no.
I mean, I like it, but you have to learn programming language, so
Well, this
it's
isn't a programming class.
no, and which is nice.
Yeah. If any of you decide to become
I do like R, though.
a statistics major, you probably will want to learn R, but it's
Mhm.
not very easy to use. It's not like Excel. Excel is much easier.
Yeah, if you want
Although
to
somebody liked it better.
do any research and publish, it's like
Yeah.
really
And
everyone's
it's
using
free
it right
too. That's
now.
the best
Yeah.
thing. Excel costs money.
Okay.
All right, so you're
So-
good, 23.99.
Oh, that's good. I thought we had 24 though.
No.
Oh, no, we didn't. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right, so how do you count without counting?
You highlight what's in your group, and then you look down on the right bottom
Okay,
corner.
so she's got
Counts
6.
for you.
Okay, so count all those up. What do you want to put for your column heading there, buddy?
Frequency?
Frequency, or you could also put number of funds. Is that right?
Okay.
You've got 6 funds that are between 10 and 11, 10 and 12%.
And 14 to 6. You guys are ahead of me. You could tell me.
That's okay.
But
Everybody always complains I go too fast, and so I love it when a student comes up and then they go too fast. Okay?
wait, did I get all of? What you guys got? 0 here?
Yeah, now let me ask you a question. Since there's a 0 in that category, can you eliminate it?
No.
No, do not eliminate it. Keep it there. Okay?
No.
All right, now you highlight your data,
And insert.
insert,
And we want a bar graph,
bar graph,
quick layout
quick layout,
where they're touching.
make them touch,
Do we want to order them though?
and order them.
Or no, they're already.
Oh, yeah, do we want to
just
turn
did
this into a
that. Sorry.
Pareto chart?
No,
No, we do not. Okay?
because this is showing us our distribution.
It's showing us our distribution. Now, compare that graph to the other graph. Obviously, we'll label it properly. Okay, do you see the difference there? Okay, so the histogram maker, here's what I will say. If you have a ton of data, then yeah, go ahead and use it. But when you have these small data sets that we're going to be using, it's not going to work very well because it's just too small. Okay, question?
I'll actually it out.
Okay, all right, thanks. So let's describe this graph. Probably right skewed. Perhaps, what was another term you could use? Bimodal, because you kind of have 2 peaks here, this one, that one, right? Okay, I'd probably go with right skewed, perhaps bimodal. Okay, Hiram.
If the 22 to 24 was farther away, would you just call it an outlier, or would it still be bimodal?
Oh, would it be an outlier? That's a great question. We're going to answer that next week, I think. Yeah, we'll talk about outliers next week. So at this point, there's not enough information for me to say if it's an outlier, but it could be.
Okay.
Okay? There's a chance. Good question. Any other questions? Yes.
When we do ranges, can we do ranges like they did in the auto-generated histogram?
Yeah, that's the other thing that I don't like about the auto-generated histogram. If you have a lot of data, this is nice, but like these are just really weird. Like 10.06 to 13.56, but they're just kind of weird.
Well, I'm not saying like that, but the inclusive and non-inclusive brackets.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah, so notice they have 1706 included and 1706 is excluded in the next one. I guess you gotta really pay attention to that stuff. So 17.06 would be here, but not here. Okay, so yeah, I didn't even notice that there. But yeah, that could work as well. But I kind of like the way Sydney did it, so. Any other questions?
Well, I can't get my graph to be the bigger, like the histogram one. I'm just like a regular line graph. How do you get it?
So click on quick layout. Make sure you have the first. Quick layout. Okay, all right, so let me just remind you, the biggest problem with the computer tests next week is people don't practice this stuff, and then they're like, oh, I need more time. You only get 50 minutes, that's all we get, okay? So they only let me put a certain number of tests in the testing center. This is the easy test. We're going to do it in class. After that, you can spend 8 hours in the testing center if you want. Yes?
What's the homework?
Homework is 2.3 and 2.4. So quiz will be on those 2 sections tomorrow, and we'll start chapter 3 tomorrow. So see y'all tomorrow.